But one thing led to another, and it just became obvious that there was some real traction behind BuiltRight. Hey guys, Matt here with BuiltRight. If you've been following for a while, you know that we create a lot of video content. We release a video every week or two, sharing with you something that we're designing out in the shop or manufacturing or an event that we're going to. And we love talking about that. We love sharing that. But one of the things that always comes up, whether it's privately or in messages or when I'm out at an event, people want to know sort of like the origin story of BuiltRight. And if you go back into our channel, you can see 3 years ago today what we were doing. But there is a big part of the story that happens prior to that, and it's the piece where I'm in my basement, in the garage, late nights, weekends, that kind of thing. So we thought what we would do is slow down a little bit and share some of that story with you. In that story, there are a ton of like mini stories that I could sit here and talk about for an hour. The Singer sewing machine is one of them. The storage units that I had are another. I don't know if you can see behind me, but the whole SEMA Launchpad business competition that I participated in. There's all these like micro stories, and we want to share more of that as well. But we thought we would take a moment today to kind of give a general overview of how the business started and how we got to, sort of where we are today. So with that being said, I want to rewind a little bit further back to when I was like 12 years old and that entrepreneurial bug first bit me. My brother Joe and I would be doing lemonade stands and trying to sell cookies and stuff out on the end of our driveway with very little success because it was a busy road. At one point I had an idea I had just gotten we had laptops in school or something like that, and I had this idea for a small local classified service so that somebody in my town could list their bike for sale and then another person could find it and buy it. So I had this idea. I actually bought a domain name, bluebubble.com, but I needed a more powerful computer to run Dreamweaver to build that website. And so I asked my parents for a computer and they said no, but what they did do for my 14th birthday was they gave me a $1,200 zero interest small business loan, which I did pay back $50 a month. And I used that money to buy a computer. So not long after that, I got distracted with school and cars and all that. I went to college. I studied mechanical engineering. Actually, while I was in college, I had two different businesses. One is that I had a vinyl plotter that I had in my dorm room, and I would cut decals and sell them on eBay. So I was actually cutting like company logos, like Volcom and Grenade gloves and snowboard companies, and selling those on eBay. And I'd go to the post office at school every day with these envelopes full of stickers. And eventually I got enough cease and desist notices and got distracted with other things that I stopped doing that. I also learned how to crochet hats, which I know sounds really lame, but there was a moment there in snowboarding and skiing where crocheted hats, custom hats, were really cool. So I learned how to do that. I had a small business called Format Hats that I would do hats for people. The other thing in college is that I did the Mini Baja team, which is now called SAE Baja, and it's basically a group of engineering students that build a single-seat off-road race car, take it to competition, present it, do a design presentation, and then race it. And I think amongst all of these things, the reason I'm telling you all of this is I think like a lot of like the entrepreneurial DNA, the truck off-road DNA, that's where that came from. So I graduated school. I went to work in the defense industry with a nice, cool sounding job, and I thought that was what I had to do to make money to play with cars on the weekend. I did that. I ended up meeting some guys in the car community, in the car racing community, and ended up joining their small business in Minneapolis. I ran that business. I ran the product development side and then ultimately the business for 7 years, doing performance Subaru parts, so WRX, STI, intakes, turbo kits, intercoolers, things like that. But I had an F-150 as a daily driver, and so this is where BuiltRight sort of started. I had an F-150 as a daily driver, and I had a product idea for something that would help you access the space behind the rear seat. And there was just no other solution for it. People were using like shoelaces, bubble gum, zip ties, that kind of stuff. And people still do that, and it's great. But I wanted a more refined solution. So I designed one. I manufactured 50 of them, and I sold them to a couple of friends and kind of lost track of it, honestly. And then at some point I got that itch again and decided to make a website for BuiltRight. And I put this product on the website and I posted in a couple of Facebook groups in kind of like a sneaky way. I was like, hey, has anybody seen this product before? And orders just started rolling in. And I remember my phone buzzing throughout the day while I'm sitting at work, and I was trying to do a good job of, not checking it until nights and weekends. So I did a pretty good job of that. But one thing led to another, and it just became obvious that there was some real traction behind BuiltRight. So I had that receipt release. That's where the Singer sewing machine comes in. So actually, that first set of these that I made, I went on Craigslist and bought this sewing machine from some woman down the street for like $50, and she taught me how to use it on her kitchen table. So I used this sewing machine to sew like the first probably 2,000 of those straps in my basement in Minnesota. So I used that money I basically was just reinvesting everything. And I used that money to make the first set of bedside molly panels. I called them bedside racks at the time. Now they're kind of molly panels. We patents for both of those. I made that first set of bedside racks. This is another like mini story. I designed them in CAD. I only could afford to make one set of prototypes. So it was like a big deal. I had a local guy that had a plasma table. And so he cut them. I remember leaving work one day and I'm driving. I'm really excited to get these panels because I'm going to bend them by hand and install them in my truck. And I get there and he brings out the panels and they were all like half scale. Like they're all mini panels. And something had happened where he ingested my like DXF, my flat files at the wrong scale. Anyway, he was nice enough to recut them. I picked them up the following week. I bent them crudely in my garage and then installed them on my truck, and sort of the rest is history. I continued doing that, sell, and then reinvest what I could into the next product idea. So again, that was all in Minnesota. Eventually it took over my basement and my garage. And then down the street I had to start renting storage units, like kind of the size of this room, that were not heated, which in Minnesota is a painful thing. No electricity. So I would work all day, spend a little bit of time with Meredith, my wife, and then go park at these storage units. And I'd either run my truck or eventually I got a generator to run lights and like a staple machine and a tape machine. And I would package panels and bring them back to the house for the orders for the next day. So I had this routine where I was doing that for quite a while. And then eventually I needed to get some space. I needed to get warehouse space. I needed to find help. So and at the very same time, my oldest daughter, Hallie, was born. This would have been in the fall of 2018. And we ultimately decided to move from Minnesota to Connecticut, where my wife's family is, and sort of put down some more roots. So we've got a 3,500 square foot warehouse space in Connecticut here, started hiring help. But really kind of just repeating on the same idea of saving, reinvesting the money into the next product idea. And luckily, I have a lot of product ideas, and by the time we got to this point, we had enough customers that they were also feeding us ideas. They understood that BuiltRight was a company that wanted to make unique, innovative, high-quality, American-made products, and so no shortage of ideas. Still to this day, we could probably fill every whiteboard in the building with product ideas that we're trying to chase down. So that's a very exciting thing. Let's see, so that was in Brookfield, Connecticut. We were there for about 3 years before it started to feel really tight. Looked around for other bigger space and decided to sort of take a big swing. One of our core values is think big, take bold action. And so instead of leasing another space that was maybe twice that size, we bought a piece of land here in New Milford, Connecticut, and built a 35,000 square foot warehouse. So that's what we're in today. That was a much bigger project than I anticipated, but now we have a really great home for BuiltRight. We're able to continue investing in people, equipment, space, process, procedure, all of that. So BuiltRight's running right now as like a very well-oiled machine, as much as it can be for a business that's growing as fast as we are. And that kind of brings us to today. We're releasing a new product right now almost every week. And it's not without a little bit of pain, but it's happening. And now we've got this great home and the equipment and the people and the team to really continue building BuiltRight into what we know that it can be. I think one of the things that's important to me and where I spend a lot of time as a volunteer with SEMA is to help other entrepreneurs achieve their goals. And for me, this is really like a dream come true. But I know that a lot of people aren't in the same position to either take that big swing, or they don't know the next step, or they're intimidated, or they just don't think they can do something. And I know that I've more or less overcome all of those things, and I'm appreciative of the people in my life that have encouraged me to do that. That's kind of a callback to that small business loan that my parents gave me when I was a kid, is just to sort of believe in what you want to do. But Where am I going with that? I guess so. This is a little bit of a departure from our normal videos where we're sort of showing you what we're doing, because I wanted to tell this story, and I know that a lot of people are curious about it. If this format of a video is interesting to you, there's just like a lot of other stories. I know I mentioned the Singer sewing machine. I briefly mentioned the SEMA Launchpad program. We had something called the Bat Cave, which was this like crazy storage place where we would go in between our last facility and this one, where we just needed more space. So there's just a ton of those stories that we would love to tell if it's interesting. So we'd love to get feedback from you guys in the comments or privately or whatever, regarding the stories. So, all right. So to those of you that stuck around through all that, thank you. Appreciate your interest in our story and BuiltRight. If you guys have feedback on that, want to see more of it, less of it, would love to see that in the comments, or like or subscribe. I hate to say that, but we are like a pretty data-driven group here. So if we see from a metric standpoint that you guys like or don't like any specific video, that's how we kind of gauge what we do moving forward in the absence of comments and feedback. So thank you again. Have a good one.